and welcome back to E-commerce Arbitrage. In this video, we will be covering part 2 of the success formula called pattern utilization. Now, in the last video, we went over the first part of the formula called pattern recognition, which allowed us to sort through millions of products and select a product and a niche which we will have high probability of success by looking for tells or clues that create a certain pattern leading to success. I'm not sure who it was who first said that success leaves clues, but it was that theory that led my brother and I to be conscious enough to realize that if we succeeded in the business venture we took on, which we now dubbed e-commerce arbitrage, we should be taking notes and recordings of the steps we're taking to be able to pass it on to others. Because our success took off like wildfire, it wasn't easy to do. We did many things very, very fast to keep up with the growth, and of course a lot of mistakes were made. And in the midst of it all, we tried to keep track of all the steps and tools that we took and used to get where we are today. So we then took all that information and broke it down to steps, recipes and formulas to make it as simple as possible for other people to follow and implement. And it's the implementation, in other words, utilization of this knowledge, skills, and tools that we're about to cover in this part 2 of the success formula called pattern utilization. While pattern recognition covered in the last video is wonderful, pattern utilization is much better. Because recognizing what to pick as your winning product for your business is great, but using what you've learned and recognized is a whole other level. And that's our goal at the end of the day. It's to get on the path of pattern of utilization. Now, as a bit of a sneak peek, I can tell you that ultimately what you'll get, if you're really committed, is a pattern of creation, where you literally, because you understand so much of the principles, you'll be able to create things that produce extraordinary results. The natural steps, of course, are first to recognize the pattern, then to utilize it, and eventually you'll start to create your own product. It's natural because we are creative beings. We're entrepreneurs after all, right? And when we truly understand stuff, our brain finds a way to do it better. Now, I say that to you because you wouldn't be able to start this business without pattern recognition. You need it to get started, just like you need what we're about to dive into, pattern utilization, in order to get going. So let's not delay the inevitable any longer and jump into the second part of this success formula, pattern utilization, and see what's in store here. Now, pattern utilization consists of 3 parts. The first part is 3 important questions to ask eBay sellers, and we'll cover those, of course. The other part is 2 methods of testing a product before scaling. Now, this is going to be interesting because you'll see how at least we tried to use 2 different methods, both successful, both have their pluses, and they're just different. And there's 2 wonderful methods to test out the products that you saw patterns in the previous video that we covered. And the last part is targeting research for Facebook ads. Now, obviously, each one of these points can have its own video, if not its own module. And of course, in the case of the 2 methods and the targeting of Facebook, we're going to have separate modules and a heck of a lot more information than just this video. I just want to give you an overview as to where this is going, how you can utilize what you're learning and run with it, and basically show you kind of a sneak peek into what we're going to be diving in a lot deeper into a little later. Okay, so with that, let's actually jump into the first part, which is 3 important questions to ask eBay sellers. Now, before I actually show you the questions and talk about them, I'd like you to kind of keep some things in mind. When we're looking for the products on eBay in order to be able to resell them, we are not going to necessarily always go with the eBay seller that fits us perfectly. The reason why I'm showing you this information is because when we started, we also didn't ask these questions because we just didn't know to ask them. But when we realized that we should ask them, the business kind of led us to ask those questions. We realized that in some cases, we did better with our products, or at least better decisions were made on our side. So that's why I decided to include this. However, keep in mind, you don't have to ask these questions. They will just help you and make your business easier and better. All right, so let's jump into the first one. The first question is, do you sell in bulk? Now, we, of course, covered sellers, eBay sellers that have a lot of transactions, that sell a lot of stuff. The reason why you want to ask this question is not because you're going to come out and buy 60,000 items from the seller. No. You want to ask this question because if you do happen to do well with the product that you find that on eBay, you might want to purchase that product in bulk from that seller. And you actually may want to even carry that item at some point. You don't necessarily need a huge warehouse. You can do this from home. You can just purchase 10 of them or 20 of them or 30 of them, whatever the amount that you're comfortable with and that your finances allow you to. Not so much to necessarily get a better financial deal from the seller, but to essentially always understand that when you have the items on hand, so to speak, or in stock, in your own personal stock, you have more control over them. Any hot item on eBay is going to sell well. Not only by you, but just because it's a hot item, people will come to the seller and buy that item. So if you are somewhere on the side essentially reselling his item, which he doesn't know about, and then you come to him day, 2, or a week later in order to buy what you've already sold, what's going to end up happening is it's possible that he may be sold out by then. So if you can, and this is not necessarily something that you start with, but this is something to keep in mind. This is a question that you may ask a seller at some point, and if he says yes, you can have a conversation from negotiating the rates because you're buying in bulk to actually buying him at the same price as everybody else buys from him on eBay, but at least you'll have more control over the stock of the inventory. All right? So the next question is, do you drop ship? Okay, so now this is typically not a question that you should start with when you start the process of e-commerce arbitrage. And this is a question that you also do not have to ask. However, some eBay sellers have strict policy of no drop shipping. Some do. And essentially, this question leads you to the third important question, because if they say yes, and most of them will say yes, although there's a bunch of eBay sellers who don't understand the fact that if they drop ship, they do not lose a penny on it. As a matter of fact, they only gain by having a reseller like you helping them sell their product. For some reason, unfortunately, you do come across those sellers. But if they say yes, we do drop ship, that opens up a door to the next question, which is, would you be able to ship out packages to my customers using a generic shipping department label on the package? So what does that mean? Well, when you buy from eBay, from a seller on eBay, what you can do during the buying process from that seller is switch out your default shipping address to your customer's shipping address. And you have your customer's shipping address because by that point, they've purchased this item from you and given you their shipping address. So it's easy for you to swap your shipping address when buying this item to their shipping address. That way, the eBay seller automatically sends it to them, and you have nothing to do with it, which is the easiest way to get started in the e-commerce arbitrage, hence the name. But not every eBay seller is willing to put a generic label with their address as the return address, but instead of their eBay name or eBay store or whatever they have, to put shipping department on that label. Now, those who are okay with that, you will work out a way, and we will dive into this later, and I'll walk you through the system. You will basically work out a way where every time you order from them, they will know that you order from them because you're using your eBay account. However, the shipping address can vary. So if you can put certain instructions in the transaction and say, this is coming from Joe, please put shipping department on it, on every order that you take from this or that you purchase from this seller, you will be able to essentially lessen the potential returns, I should say, and headaches. So let's say your name is X and your the eBay seller's name is Y, and your customers purchased from X from you, but they're getting a package from Y, from the seller that you are purchasing this item from. So sometimes, every once in a while, they will go on eBay and say, wait a second, this item is like, $9.99. Why did I buy it for $19.99? Hey, you know what? I want my money back. This is nonsense. So in order to kind of not have that happen, you would speak to eBay sellers and ask them this question. Hey, can you put a shipping department label on it and not include the invoice? Okay, this is actually also an important point, which is not on the screen, but also ask them not to include the invoice of the transaction. So if they say yes, that's fantastic. If they say no, which a lot of them will, so don't be surprised, because again, they don't necessarily understand the beauty of e-commerce, I guess. That's okay. You can still go ahead and sell the product. You can still have it shipped. We've done dozens, if not hundreds, of transactions that way, and maybe one or two of them, we got an email saying, hey, what's going on here? It's just cleaner and better, and something for you to keep in mind. So again, these are not an absolute musts. These are just questions that you may want to keep in mind and just kind of poke the seller and ask them if that's a possibility. So essentially, that's it with the 3 important questions. Now let's go back to see the pattern of utilization, the second part, which is 2 methods of testing a product before scaling. Before we jump online where I show you some of the 2 different methods we used, I just wanted to let you know that what this really means is you may want to test them both and see which method works better for you. And only then, once you find out, you may want to scale bigger and bigger, because each method has its own advantage, and whatever method works for you, you'll be able to scale easier because it just seems to be, a better fit with you. For us, both of them actually worked, but one worked better than the other. So we chose one and ran with it and ended up where we are today, which is millions and millions of dollars later. In order to be able to do that, you need to test things. So that's why I wanted to tell you about the 2 methods that we've personally used. So let's jump on the internet and I'll show you what I am speaking about. Now, if you remember, in the last video, we've covered sunglasses and we went all over different methods or different tells of how to find a product, and it doesn't have to be sunglasses. We could be in many niches, like I said, dogs, sports, camping, you name it. I mean, there's so many, but essentially we found and stuck with sunglasses. So now what happens now? We found a product. What now? Well, what the next step would be is to create a page, a website, which is not really a store. At least that's the way that we did it, and we also realized it was a very efficient and quick way to do things, especially early on when you're not 100% certain if the product is going to take off or not. So what we really did is put together 2 different types of pages. First page looks like this, and there's many pictures here. It doesn't really matter, but essentially you have the title. We took all the pictures from the eBay auction. As you can see, all the pictures are here. They may not be in the perfect size, but that's because this page takes about 3 to 5 minutes to put up. Okay, that's all it takes. If you have, or you're testing many different products, even if you're not testing, but you're scaling, you want to be able to produce these pages, at a whim's notice, at a moment's notice. You want to be up and running. You certainly do not want to be involved with developers and, putting pages together, web stores together. That's complex, and that comes only once you have fundamentals in place and once you have the resources to go that way. So what you want to do is have a simple website, or page, I should say, that allows you to demonstrate and, more importantly, purchase your product and has certain elements in it. So as you can see, you could share, tweet, or pin this page and this item. You have a title which basically says $29.95 crossed out $19.95, which is what, let's say, we're selling this item for. A very short description, an expiration or time clock, a price, and a buy it now button. Now, why is there no description when the eBay seller, for example, has a ton of description right over here, right underneath all the images that we took, right? So there's this and there's this. Why aren't we using this description? The main reason why we're not using this description is the more text you put here, the lower the buy it now button will be, which means people will have to scroll. You don't want to do that. You want the buy it now to be above the scroll. We also tested an enormous amount of different products in our niche, and we usually didn't put anything here besides about what you're seeing on the screen. We take money using PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, use the Buy It Now button, blah, blah, blah. If people see a product they like and you serve this product to the right audience, they will buy. If they will ask you questions, you can always answer them. But for the most part, you're playing with low-end items. This is not $199.95. This is $19.95. So this is a low enough price for people to basically create on a moment's notice purchase, right? And basically spontaneous purchase. This is not something that they have to think about like a house or a car. This is very, very low end, so to speak. And in that regard, you want to utilize the space in the best way that it serves you. You may want to put a sentence or two here if you like, but for the most part, we actually, when we started this business, this is as much of a description as we had. And we had all kinds of products that essentially, physical products like glasses and clothing that have different sizes, that are made of different materials, and this and that. And you know what? Nothing was put in the description besides about the lines that you're seeing on the screen right now. And it worked. So I'm suggesting that you follow the same steps. Again, if you're uncomfortable or you want to put more information, you're more than welcome to. But essentially, the idea is to keep the Buy It Now button above the fold, so to speak, so they don't have to scroll down to see it. So that's one way, one method of driving sales. You create a page. And again, all this information will be covered in the following modules in the course, where we'll show you exactly how to create these pages in a matter of few minutes and so on and so forth. I'm just giving you an overview so you're comfortable with it and you get an idea as to where we're going in this whole process. So essentially, that's one method, which means you drive traffic directly to the product and you sell it. That's it. There's no mystery here. There's, it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing to it besides that. The second method is essentially using microfunnels and giveaways. So what does that mean? Well, you create a page like this, which says win a free pair of the name of the product. You put a picture on it, and you have an email box where they put their email and a button that says sign up. When they sign up, they're taken to a different page. That page essentially allows them to do several things. It allows them to communicate with you. It also allows them to purchase this exact item. Now you might say, why in the world would somebody purchase this exact item if they're participating in a giveaway where they can win it? Well, if the item is really interesting and the item is, again, a low-priced item and somebody truly wants this item, what ends up happening is they don't want to wait, because this might be a weekly draw or a monthly draw, or however you decide to run this draw. Now, we'll, of course, share our strategies down the road, but just to give you an overview, some people want it now. And because of that, they say, you know what, forget this giveaway, forget this draw. This is not that expensive. I'm just going to buy it. And in this case, you drive traffic to this page. Now, the advantage of this versus the previous method is that in this method, you are collecting an email list of people interested in this product, which are obviously going to be interested most likely in the cycling products of all kinds, because they're obviously interested in this sport. So if you have a product that is very much related to something like a sport or a breed, I keep going back to the same examples, or anything that you're selling, they're buying this because they're interested in this whole niche and this whole the products around this niche, then that list would serve you really well, because you can email them, you can follow up with them and sell them products without running any advertising, because you'll just send an email, they'll be either interested or not and purchase it or not. Now, sending an email is not going to cost you anything, which means your profit will essentially come from those emails, because the money that you'll be generating from sales of this product as part of this microfunnel are going to cover the fees that you're running for your advertising in order to drive traffic to this page in the first place. So, again, the advantage here is you have a list. It's a little bit of a longer structure, and you will be able to use this list to follow up with sales and grow that list, and that list long term, it can serve you really, really well. This method, the first method that we covered, is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is sell enough items to cover the advertising fees and obviously have profit. So between these two methods is what we recommend that you start your e-commerce arbitrage with, because that's exactly what we've done. We ran both of those methods. Both were very successful, but this specific method that I'm showing you right now, this page, direct to sales, ended up taking off bigger, better, and faster, and that's what we ended up running with more than microfunnels. However, we do have many different methods to this day, large, pretty huge actually, funnels, email marketing funnels, and Facebook fans, and all sorts of things to be able to reach out to our people in the outside of Facebook ads directly. So it's not like we essentially went with one or the other at the end of the day. We just ran with one and then followed up with the other. But when you start, you might want to test both of them to see which one works better for you. That covers the overview for the second part of the pattern utilization. The third part is the Facebook ads research. Now, if we actually jump over to Facebook ads, this is not custom audience, this is audience insights, and you will find this inside your ads manager. There's a little link that says audience insights there, or you can just go Google Facebook audience insights and it's going to take you to this link. What this allows you to do is do research. Now, maybe you don't know anything about the cycling niche, as me, for example. I have no idea who buys it, why they buy it, what they do, or anything about them. I don't know who buys most of it. Is it men? Is it women? Which age? So where do I start? How do I do my targeting? Well, there's many ways to do research. And again, Facebook deserves and will have its own module, if not more, in this course. So what I'll do is I'll do a quick overview as one of the starting points that you may use in order to do the research, in order to understand who to target and how to target. So in this particular case, we come to Audience Insights, which is a Facebook tool, and we use United States as our base, and we type in something like cycling. We kind of scroll down. Let's see, cycling sport maybe. Cycle sport. Okay, I'll go with this. And once we have this in there, Facebook basically gives us the breakdown of the gender as to who's interested in this sport, as well as just enormous information related to people who like this sport. Now, this immediately tells me, as you can see here, that only 10% of women and 90% of men are interested in something called cycle sport, which automatically tells me that I am most likely going to advertise only to men. I'm not even going to waste my time with women because it's only 10%. Then I look over the age breakdown, and I see that in the age 18 to 34, I'm dealing with men primarily. But as soon as it gets 35 and up, I'm primarily dealing with women. Meaning there's a certain bracket of age bracket that essentially shifts genders. However, this is just one interest, right? We can add cycling, and in a combination of the two, we see that it's about half men, half women, and we see that it spreads out, across many different age brackets. So which way do we go? Well, we need to find out what cycling really means, because cycling may mean what we think it means with the cycling sport, or it may mean something else in a completely different niche, right? So the next thing we would do is click on page likes and see what other pages people like in relation to cycling and cycle sport interests that we've put in here. And if we go and look over the top 10 categories, we see one of them is AR 500 armor. Now, that's a clue that something is a little bit off, because let's see what this is if we click on it. So this has to do with armor. Now, because it has to do with armor, I may not necessarily be in this in the correct listing of keywords, because cycling may, for some reason, and I don't know, I'm just guessing, may mean cycling of bullets, and when you're shooting something like an AR-15 or AR-500 or whatever, a gun, an automatic gun there is. Now, it could be very, very off, but if we take this out and use only Cycle Sport, we're seeing pages that are a lot more geared towards the actual cycling sport, which is the triathlon and Ironman, and so there must be some kind of correlation to armor, and I don't want to necessarily go that way, at least not yet. I may want to put a separate ad because there's some correlation between cycling and armor because it's men. So maybe there is some overlap, but at this point, I don't want to go that way. I just want a clean ad that basically targets the people that would be interested in buying these sunglasses. So I would look at these pages, at these categories, and use them as the foundation of my ads. I would also come down, of course, to this and look at other pages that are related to this niche. And in this particular case, Bicycling Magazine, basically number one row. So in this case, this page, Bicycling Magazine, is 15.2 times likely that the people who like this page are 15.2 times as likely to like Cycle Sport, and it's also very relevant. So this keyword, if you will, is something that I would immediately put in my ad and see if I can run my ad with this keyword and potential Cycle Sport and things like that. So this is the way that I would do research and a way that I would start putting my ad together towards running traffic to a page like this, for example, or a page like this, and seeing if after a certain budget is spent, if I have any sales, if I am profitable, if there's a loss, and so on and so forth. So that would be the overview of this particular part of this formula, which is the pattern of utilization, where we've utilized the information that we've learned and we put it to action, and we do so in a very quick and actionable way so that we have results very quickly, so we can build off those results, either trash them or move on, build up and scale up our business. So I hope this gave you a general idea as to how we're going to be running this business from scratch to at least this point. But before we move on to the third video, what I'd like to do is give you what I call actionable steps. And essentially, it's like homework, except I really don't like the word homework. It's very school oriented. And what I'd like to do is simply give you the action steps that will really solidify the information that we've covered so far. It will just allow you to make it that much of your own, because you'll actually be able to walk through the steps and work and browse around what we've covered yourself. And that, in my experience at least, and for me, allows it to be more real and kind of settles the knowledge in and makes it a lot more closer to something that I can achieve versus just hearing about on the computer screen in a course. So basically, the action steps are as follows. There's only 3, and the first one is use watchcount.com, which is something we covered in the previous video, to browse and find 3 product and niches that you would be interested in selling or trying to build your business around. The second one is get in touch with the eBay sellers of items that you're looking to test, which are the 3 products or niches that you found for yourself, and ask them the 3 questions. Essentially, ask them for the purposes of just going through the process. And of course, that will give you some information to work with, but you're not doing anything, extraordinary or anything special here. You just putting yourself inside or in the middle of this process, so you get more familiar with it. And the third one is, if they don't want to change their policies, and we're talking about eBay sellers, that is, or even if they do, it's simply a good idea to look for backup sellers. If you found a product, find a backup seller that sells this product. Hopefully there's at least one, because many things can occur. The original seller could run out of the product, or for whatever reason, you can't keep working with him anymore or her because for whatever reason your relationship went sour. Things happen all the time. It's just good to have backup plans, okay? So simply go through these 3 action steps, and get yourself involved in the process before diving into the next video. And with that, I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you actually do these steps. See you there.